right, I think we're going to be getting started here. So welcome everybody. Thanks everyone for showing up. Today we're going to hopefully give you some key takeaways here on how to set up and manage both your sales and marketing teams to get the most out of them. So I'm going to start, maybe I'm going to start, there we go. I'm going to start with just reviewing a little bit of data. For those of you who are not aware, LinkedIn has over 675 million monthly users, and 40% of them are active on LinkedIn every single day. You got 55 million companies on LinkedIn, but the most important figure here is that only 3 million users share content weekly. And what that means is that those 3 million people are really influencing and driving all of the conversations that you see on LinkedIn for those 675 million. So there's tremendous opportunity on LinkedIn for your entire organization if you're not taking advantage of it. We've also seen this personally. I mean, the data here that I pulled shows a 300% higher open rate using LinkedIn Direct Messenger versus email. But we've experienced this also with our clients here at Army 8. We have run side-by-side direct message campaigns using LinkedIn automation alongside an email drip campaign using the exact same messaging. And there's really no comparison between the two. Virtually all of the leads end up coming in from the LinkedIn automation. Email just doesn't have the same power that it used to. And something else to be aware of, and everybody's seen it obviously, but really kind of want to point this out, that tools have changed dramatically over the past 15 years. And in particular, even think I'm thinking my early career when I was doing outbound telesales 25 years ago. And if I had a list of 10,000 contacts, it would take me 6 months to go through that list as a salesperson. But with today's tools, a single salesperson can reach 10,000 people with one email pretty easily. They can reach tens of thousands of people on social media with one post. And we have all these other things, list building services that are out there, audience targeting through a lot of the social media channels, and CRM marketing automation in order to follow up repeatedly on the people that are inquiring. And so the reason I'm pointing this out is that in the old days, the marketing team was really the only ones who had that kind of reach. If you wanted to reach tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of people, you had to go to a marketing department where they would put out TV ads or radio or even print. But today, your sales team has that same kind of power. And these personal brands that are developed around these individuals are just more important than they've ever been because of that reach. So, a question to ask yourself, first, are those salespeople's messaging aligned with your marketing department? Because if they're not, then it can negatively affect your brand with conflicting messages, making your job more difficult. And if you're not taking advantage of your sales team, you're really missing the boat when it comes to your marketing plan.
Hey, Nate, Brent jumping in here. Can you hear me?
I hear you, Brent.
Sorry about that. Mike and I were working out some technical difficulties and I had to come in as him. If you just go back to that last slide, you and I had shared in the prep for this at how, you guys obviously have been doing this for years. We really jumped into LinkedIn about a year ago as we built out a series of insight posts and kind of learned the hard way this exactly what you're saying, that we have a corporate web page, but it was really as I built out my personal brand and kind of a voice around that we saw much higher engagement rates. So people would come to the corporate brand for announcements, things like that, kind of major events for the company, but it was really that personal brand and the personal connections and the one-to-one conversations around specific topics around specific ideas, people kind of going offline and engaging, that really for us has driven the most engagement in LinkedIn. So I think it's just I know you're going to say more about it, but I just wanted to emphasize that at the outset.
Thanks for that, Brent, and glad to have you here. That's actually a great leader into this next slide. And you know, it's interesting because I experienced this firsthand when I was doing work for Planet Fitness a few years ago, where the corporate would basically set the stage for all the creative for the individual franchisees. And we were doing marketing both for corporate as well as the individual franchisees. So we would take that calendar and we'd start posting it up on the individual franchisees Facebook page, and we would get very low engagement rates on that. But then we would have you know, let's say a personal trainer at Planet Fitness walk outside and grab their phone, take a crappy little picture, add a couple of comments to it, and they would get huge engagement on that post. So you look at the difference between the two, and you can see that the engagement rates are just going to be so much higher when you're dealing with a person versus a company. And these are much broader statistics that you're looking at here. These are engagement rates for the company pages. You can see less than 1% engagement rate versus the personal profiles, an average of 3.2%. So you can see the importance. If you have a marketing plan that has engagement as part of it, which all of them should, then you really need to be addressing these personal profiles in your plan. And you can obviously see why. Who would you rather engage with? Do you want to engage with the big giant company, the big giant brand, or are you more likely to engage with someone that you recognize, someone who your friends have engaged with? And that really comes down to those personal profiles. And you can see that the personal brands really have the trust and credibility to engage more people, where the corporate brands are really about tying all of those personal brands together with one cohesive story. So exactly what Brent was talking to, think of your corporate page as driving the direction. And then you have all of these personal brands who are engaging with that content, but also creating their own content that just reinforces that corporate brand story.
Nate, picking up on that, I mean, and you and I talk a lot about this as we think about different clients we work with, but that corporate brand, which is controlled by marketing, often is your overall, positioning in the market. What are the outcomes that you drive uniquely for your buyers? But then that really comes alive in individuals' experiences working with clients. And as we'll talk about a little bit later. I mean, setting those overall corporate value drivers, marketing strategy, positioning, making those available. And we'll talk about some ways to make them available, but then, getting your people to interact with those specific messages that are unique to your brand, part of your brand promise, I think is a key part of this balance you're describing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And to your point, Brent, you and I have worked together both on the Army 8 messaging, but we've talked about other clients as well. And that brand story, which really kind of revolves around, hey, here are the challenges that our customers are facing. Here's how we solve them uniquely. And here's our brand promise that kind of encapsulates your overall message. And once that is clearly communicated internally, and then given specific examples to the sales team, you can see how you can now get the sales team working right alongside that marketing department. So you can see here, that your corporate brand, should be controlled by the marketing department. That brand story, that overall messaging, the content that you're going to need to create in order to prove out all of those brand promises. And then think of your personal brands doing the like, comment, share with their own authentic voice, because they're the ones who are going to invite the participation from the personal networks. So it's think of the corporate as a megaphone, but then you have all of these individual soldiers out there who are out there promoting the overall concepts. But the corporate brand also, which some Brent mentioned earlier too, is the one where they offer the hooks, right? That's where you're going to catch them at the bottom. So once they're introduced from a personal brand ambassador, then you can think of the corporate brand then offering a hook or a catch, whether that be a webinar, a sales offer, or whatever they have going on at that particular point in time. They put that up as a post, and now you've got all these people who now already know and trust the brand as well as the people behind it, and they're going to be much more likely to convert. And I wanted to put up, a more specific example, something that you can actually take home to get a clearer idea of how all of this works. I think of the corporate posts that are being pushed out really much more about that top of funnel strategy. This is where we tell the story. This is where we say, this is who we are. Professionalism will really drive that brand positioning. You want to stand out as being, very professional, and you're going to put out posts that will reinforce that brand promise. And you can see here, this particular example, I brought it up, Nine Mechanical, they're an Army 8 client, and they have just executed on this masterfully. And I'd encourage all of you to follow Chris Carter, who's here, because he just gets it so well. And his posts are really amazing, how well it all ties together. But you can see that here on the left-hand side, this is a post that we created for Nine Mechanical. And you can see right there at the top, your unplanned outages are often symptoms of deeper core issues. Their brand promise is to not just manage problems, but to actually solve them and dig deeper and think more about the problem so that they can solve it permanently. And so we're reinforcing that particular message there. And then you'll see the post on the right coming from Chris Carter's personal profile. And now he's giving a specific example. You'll see an image there taken right in the shop of some valves that his Nine Mechanical actually repaired. And you can see how nice they look. These came out of a very dirty place. So when they're all painted up and done up nicely, you can see how great they look. And so you take just a quick on the shop floor, just went out, took a picture, and added this quick little post here. And if you look down below at the comment there, that's an actual client that came in and commented on that image. He just loved it. And then you can see Chris quickly responded to that, reaching out to him with tagging him in that particular post. And you can actually see what I just described earlier playing out in real life. So when you're thinking of the personal profiles, it really isn't about as much about the professionalism as it is about the authenticity. So even going back to that Planet Fitness example, if someone sees a photo and it looks too staged, it's almost like your mind will just skim right past it, just scroll right past it. You see it as an ad, and you subconsciously, you don't want to be hit up with an ad. But you see pictures like the two here, the one that we created, it is professional, but it's also authentic. And then the one on the right, it's definitely authentic. You can tell you got some dirt, right? It's sitting on some old skids. It doesn't matter. It's actually the authenticity that drives that particular engagement. Here. So when you're thinking of, tools and tactics and, who's going to be controlling what, in the marketing team, obviously the primary social media calendar, which is setting the stage, setting the overall cadence for all of the individual personal profiles. Think video content. Video content, we see tremendous results from it. It's much more engaging, and it's much less expensive to promote. Think of blogs and case studies that the salespeople can use, right? And think of for instance, let's say marketing department comes up with a case study. They push that out on the corporate site and say, hey, here's a new case study we have. But it has a whole different meaning when a salesperson grabs that case study, reshares it on their personal profile, and then tags a couple of people who were involved in it. And says, hey, remember the time or how difficult this was, or the challenges that we faced in this? And it was a lot of fun when we did X, Y, or Z, right? First of all, it's authentic. Secondly, you're inviting people to turn around and engage in that. you're going to get much broader reach as well as a result of that engagement. Think of from the marketing standpoint, the newsletters, sending out an email newsletter, but then a salesperson taking hold of that newsletter and forwarding it to a prospect that they know it applies to, with a specific headline that says, hey, I know this applies to you for X, Y, and Z reasons. I know you're facing X, Y, and Z challenges, and this will be helpful for you. It has a whole different meaning when that's done. So, the next biggest hurdle in all of this is actually initiating the change and getting your whole organization to communicate together. And that's why we've invited Brent here to describe that, because he is an expert in exactly that. And I'll hand it over to you, Brent. Just let me know when you need me to change the slide.
Thanks, Nate. So the starting point, Nate talked a lot about authenticity, creating a personal message, and there's a reason for that. You all live in the same world that Nate and I live in, where we're bombarded with information all day long, and many go-to-market teams complicate that because their email messages or their call messages in a sales call, focus very much on, it's about us, it's about the company, it's about our product, it's about our story. There are 4-5 slides at the beginning of the pitch deck on that. And that's sort of led to buyer alienation, right? Many of you think about this, have heard this term buyer empathy, putting ourselves in the buyer's shoes and our prospects' shoes. There is this stat and there's multiple studies that have been done by the Sales Executive Board, which is now part of Gartner, and CSO Insights, Chief Sales Officers Insights, that declining willingness on the part of executives to meet with salespeople. And the reason for that is very simple, that often what they experience is a product pitch. And they can get all the information they want from a website or peer review sites or different kind of content areas from LinkedIn. And so the last thing they want when they choose to engage with a brand is product information or company information. What they really want is to understand more what your value prop is and what business problems you can solve for them. So when you, and we'll talk about making it easier for team to personalize, but it starts with this idea of just getting your prospecting team, your marketing, your sales team to think more about being a trusted advisor, inviting value-added conversations, using social content to kind of raise their personal brand as folks that can add value to the prospect's days, making the value of taking a meeting, of coming to the website, engaging with the content, just increasing the value of that. Why don't we jump to the next slide? Just to kind of continue, one of the biggest challenges we see, and you have all seen this statistic, that 60 to 70% of content that's developed by marketing is never used by sales. That's been produced a few times, and some of you experience it. Marketing often works really hard to develop success stories or develop video testimonials or develop white papers, and then the salespeople never use it. One of the biggest things that you all can fix to help address that, not only to get sales and customer success or account management when they're working with existing customers to use the content, is just thinking about building. We talk about tailoring your sales messaging around content pathways. And I'll say what that is, and then I'll give an example, because I see Liv Carter from Osmosis on the phone, and that's a good example. But B2B buyers, basically, what they want to hear about is not just general messages about what you do, but the more specific it is to people like them and problems they're working on. So you see this content preferences survey the B2B buyers are much more likely to engage with content that is mapped to specific goals, that is aligned to different industry verticals, and they give the most credence of all of just hearing stories from their peers. So at Osmosis, the work, for example, that Liv is doing with the sales and marketing team, and we're supporting that work, is thinking about, they have a transformational product. It's for medical education. And they talk about the name osmosis is really, how can medical students learn by osmosis, learn more easily in ways that stick with a self-directed video-based curriculum. And as they take that to, medical schools or nursing schools, or physician assistant schools or other health professionals, thinking about the specific, ways they drive value. And there are sort of three they've identified. One is moving your curriculum, dean or instructional leader, to more self-directed, so students can direct themselves, higher impact. So shifting your curriculum, right, to align to today's student is one. The second is just learner success, the way that a more interactive curriculum, video-based, contributes to higher grades, higher persistence. And the third is then helping instructors, right, with that blended teaching modality, teaching into a flipped classroom. So if you think about those three value pathways I just talked about, it's a term we give to it, and you think about the segments they sell into, medical, physician assistants, nursing, et cetera, and there are others. But the more we can now build, think of a simple library of content assets that align to those, you now enable your sales team just to pick from them. If I'm going out to medical, if I'm going out to nurse practitioner, I'm thinking about going to the dean. So one of the easiest ways we found to keep your sales team on message, but to be able to personalize, is building out those content libraries in ways that align to your key value messages and align to your key segments. So let's go to the next slide. I've talked about this, the content asset library, and it really is foundational to get your sales team to use your content in a brand consistent way, of just thinking about organizing those things around your personas, your segments, your key value prop. But the other thing you want to encourage each of your individual team members to do, and you can do this as you think about coaching your team around prospecting, right? How do they engage their market? How do they engage their target accounts? How do they engage their target buyers? Is, having them come up with their own point of view in terms of why that mission, why does the osmosis mission matter? It can be, or, think of other, that's a higher ed or a medical. If it's in the engineering space, if it's in the corporate learning space, it might be because they had a background before they started selling. They were in that professional track and saw this solution as unique, or they're committed to the mission of students, or they're committed to the mission of corporate learners, or they're committed to the mission of just making research more accessible. It could be that. It could be that they are a constant learner, and their point of view is, I want to share great information because I want to get good information back. So creating that point of view around that content asset library that everybody can use is a way now for them to build a personal brand that's linked to the company brand. And one thing we strongly encourage is then across your sales team or across your account management team, if people are posting, the peer learning, the social aspect of this building the brand is reshare your colleagues' post and reemphasize their point of view. And to go back to our first slide on prospecting as a trusted advisor and engaging as a trusted advisor, it's just another way of saying, hey, I'm not the only smart person on this team. We're all thinking about how to change medical education. We're all thinking about how to optimize manufacturing processes, and really interested and excited to do that. So if you can get folks to build their own personal view and then kind of leverage their colleagues' personal point of view, it really is a way of re-emphasizing the company brand. And then we all know that there are these tools that have used effectively, LinkedIn Navigator, where you can just see who in your target persona, who in your target segment is posting, interacting, or clicked-in automation, which can kind of turn your LinkedIn into a prospecting sequence. These are tools that then can make it easier, just to accelerate your outreach once you figure out the voice that works and your target buyer. I think one more slide, and then we'll have some time for questions and comments or reactions. So the other thing that we just emphasize, if you want to get the sales team and your account management team using that content, building their personal voice, just thinking about your cadence of meetings between marketing and sales, that you have a way of getting continual feedback from the marketing content to your sales, your account management, your SDR team, in terms of what's working and what's not working, letting them take ownership of that, both as a team and as individuals. We often encourage at least a monthly meeting. Some teams do it bi-weekly, but it really should be an opportunity for the sales team members, or this could be the account team members or the SDRs, to communicate to each other and to marketing where they are winning, right? What's working, what's landing. It's often that kind of informal data that will guide people to how they can get better at building their personal brand, communicating to their market. So we think about just structuring those, actually asking people as marketing develops new content assets, and often those are shared over, and then a couple of weeks or a month later, it's helpful to come back and say, hey, this was our content build for April. This was our content build for May. Can you share with us which of those content assets work most effectively? Which messaging strategy by buyer target worked most effectively? Were there specific words or language in your email outreach? If you got a call pickup and you got somebody on the phone, if you got a first call set, was there specific language that people used back that really landed with them, that we can build back into that feedback loop now for as marketing develops its themes, as it develops its content, that can develop this kind of continual learning and revision cycle. So Nate, I will stop there in kind of prepared comments and hand it back to you for questions or just
Sure. First of all, everybody who's listening in, feel free to type in your questions in the chat. You'll notice there's a questions section over there, as well as a chat section. We'll take either. But in the interim, I think, Mike, we had one came in earlier. With us, Mike?
We did. Yep. I just put it in the chat.
Let's see if I can pull it up.
How would you track
the question? Yeah, there it is. Sorry. How would you track the outcomes of digital marketing methods and KPIs? You want to start with that one, Brent?
Yeah, I mean, you and I talk a lot about this, right? It's always people, it's the old joke, and this is less true in digital marketing, but 50% of your, I know 50% of my marketing spend works, but I just don't know what 50%. And so now in the digital marketing age is, I know all my channels, I know what rate they're building engagement and click-throughs, but I don't know which are producing the most opportunities. So we often think about, and we've talked about this, is just, running kind of structured tests a month at a time on certain themes. You pick 2 or 3 themes, you pick 2 or 3 buyers you're going after, just to see, as you go through those themes and buyers across different channels, and this can be done at an individual level, it can be done at a team level, how is that working out in terms of new discovery calls? How's that working out in terms of SQO, sales qualified opportunity production? So for us, as you know, because we talk about this a lot, Nate, it's linking to that, all of the marketing themes and the value prop we're testing, seeing how we can just informally, it's hard to link it formally, but how does that link to, increases in meetings and SQOs, and are there certain themes or personas that drive that faster?
Yeah, and I would say, the good news is that, digital is the most measurable advertising you can do. It's far better than it was 15 years ago. You can track a lot, but will you be able to nail it down to this particular ad ultimately turned into this particular lead? That's where it starts to get gray, because you may have hit them with 10 different top of funnel ads over the course of 6 months on different channels. They may have heard about you individually from some of the personal brands stories that are being posted up on social media. And then all of a sudden one day they searched Google, they found your particular ad that was on there, and they clicked on it and they converted. Well, which ones which pieces of the marketing can you attribute to that particular sale? And, to some degree, very few of them, and to others, all of them. It kind of depends on how you look at it. We also run into problems too, where yes, you can track all the marketing to show the engagement, the reach, the number of views. But if you're not in good communication with your sales team, and they're not actually on the back end putting those leads into a trackable CRM and identifying certain campaigns that were run that captured the lead, then it's all for naught. So it's a two-edged sword there. Any other questions there, Mike?
Yeah, one more.
All right. How do you work with an old school sales rep who's not willing to use digital mediums for selling? How would you coach / train them to become more comfortable with using these methods? I think this definitely falls up your alley here, Brent.
Yeah, and you and I talked a bit about this, Nate, as we were prepping this session. And I think the answer is, a couple of things. One is just asking them, presenting them with a range of digital options. If that's using LinkedIn, or just, taking content assets and sharing them via email, or if they're feeling more ambitious and quick-witted, is it Twitter? Is it video, right? Are they willing to record video and share? So, starting a conversation about where they have seen in their own experience, what landed for them. Where did somebody, it could be a personal or a professional outreach, but what was a digital medium that really landed for them, where they thought, oh, that's interesting. So start with their own experience, and then ask them to, kind of whatever they pick. Is it, video? Just might be looking at YouTube videos for a consumer thing they track, but whatever they choose as a channel they want to try first, I would just give them a simple homework assignment, which is, all right, spend a little bit more time on LinkedIn, and see which voices do you like. The people in your community that are posting, which voices do you like? Or if they're interested in exploring video or Twitter, just asking them to come back with 2 or 3 things that they liked. So I think the easiest way to get them started is just as they experience digital media and what really works for them, and then asking them to take a little bit of ownership, in terms of, well, why did you like that? And what were the ones, a couple of examples of where, things you really liked and how it landed. And then I think once you have them in motion on being committed, it's taking them to that content asset library and making it just really easy to link your content assets to specific themes or segments or buyers, or, now just making it easy to have a turnkey LinkedIn post, or a turnkey way of sending out a video message. So that's how we think about it, is, start with what excites them, get them to think more about that, take some ownership with examples, and then linking that to the easiest parts of your content that they could leverage.
And I went through a lot of this. I've had to convert a lot of people over the years to point out the effectiveness of digital tools. And I usually start with you don't have to look very far for that, have real world experiences of success. And massive multi-billion-dollar companies these days have been started from one Instagram account. Think of the Kardashians who've built a business empire around that particular channel. And you can look even closer, find some salespeople who are in their industry who have been very successful and have a strong social media presence. It's effective is kind of the first message. But then what I find is it takes really that one-on-one coaching that and frequent, like there has to be that regular communication. And I would say to get them off the ground, it'll have to be more than monthly. Maybe a weekly sales enablement program where you can give them very specific examples, like actually have that one-on-one, hey, this is where you would find some good content. Here are the messages that we are trying to communicate out here. Here's how you make it authentically you. And removing that fear, one post at a time or one connection request at a time. And then as they see it over time, especially if you can convince them to roll in something like a LinkedIn automation tool where it's going to give them a whole bunch of connections. And once they start to see the value in those connections, like, hey, I just noticed a CEO who I've been trying to reach for months through email and phone calls and never returns my phone calls, all of a sudden connected with me. And then when that happens multiple times, they're like, hey, wait a minute, I've got to get some posts out. I need to actually put something out in front of them now that they are connected to me. And then it ends up being this more natural progression, very much like working out. Like you don't want to go the first day to the gym when you haven't worked out in 3 or 4 years and try to just be like that Olympic athlete. You start with maybe an extra longer walk, a few push-ups, and you gradually work your way into it. And we find that to be the most effective way to do it. Any other questions there, Mike?
And Nate,
Yep.
Just wanted to build on one thing you said there, which is, on the coaching side, like marketing, I think often can give coaching just on the use of the tools and the strategies and what's available. But then I think, peer-to-peer, right? Directly from a sales team member or an account management team member, just kind of giving them reinforcement can make it more practical. So I love that approach of kind of a weekly or bi-weekly cadence, and think about marketing as leading on this how you use the tools and content, and then but some pure examples of wins can also be motivating.
For sure. The wins definitely drive it. If they see it's effective, if you have a person who has a true sales personality, if they see something that's effective, that's going to drive them some sales, they'll be all over it in the end. So you just really need to get in there, get them using it, and most importantly, showing them how to get a couple of wins. Other
Yes.
questions, Mike?
Don't see any in the chat. I could unmute people, but yeah, everyone's muted. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to throw them right in the chat.
And everybody here has our contact information. If this posed any questions for you, feel free to reach out. We have the entire presentation in the handout section that you can download and take a look at and share. And we've recorded this, so we'll send it as a follow-up if you think you have anybody else who might want to see this that might be important. And I think that's it. I think this will conclude it. Thank you, everybody, for showing up.
Thank you, Nate. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.